Federal employee cuts are igniting fears over wildfire risk as Nevada prepares for what could be a big fire season. President Trump has cut 10% of workers at the Forest Service so far. The agency manages 191 million acres of national forests and grasslands, including over 5 million acres in Nevada. The Nevada Division of Forestry says they have not seen staffing cuts yet, but are prepared to use their emergency hiring authorities in cases of big fire years. They tell us their relationship with the U.S. Forest Service was an essential resource for over a century.
We've been conjoined basically for over 100 years since the inception of the Forest Service. Nevada's very coordinated. We started very coordinated in fire, and we remain very coordinated today with our federal partners.
Senate Bill 10 is currently in the legislature and would allow the Nevada Division of Forestry to call in wildfire help from other states if federal resources failed. The bill is set to be heard in the second house on Monday.